Hi, good morning and welcome to this masterclass. Just to give you a brief overview of why we think this masterclass is very crucial. We've gone through a whole 40 days of mentorship, and these 40 days of mentorship have been very interesting. We've gone through the 40 days of a lockdown, a time that is very unprecedented for many people in this country, but also a time that we've had to reflect on our lives and our personal selves, or individually looking at how best we can improve ourselves and our lives. We've listened to several stories, personal stories from a lot of amazing people, young people, both known, many unknown, but people who have moved an interesting in their lives, and again, stories we would love to be associated with. So welcome to today's mentorship class, which is a climax of the 42 days of mentorship that we've been having with my elder, Robert Kabushenga. In my opinion, this has been a very great journey of learning and unlearning for many of us. Just to let you know, when we were thinking about the masterclass, we were asking ourselves how best we can support individuals become or realize their ideas. The 42 days of mentorship have been very interesting in sharing ideas on how to achieve your goals, how to ideate, how to move around with, making that idea come to life. But you see, without public speaking, without being able to articulate your idea, your goal, whatever is in here, using speech or visualizing it, it's very impossible for you to actually do much. I've always said, if you are a salesman or an entrepreneur or a business person and you cannot speak, you must be able to have a product that not only speaks very well for you, but a very refined product that speaks for itself. Today's masterclass is going to do that. So this is brought to you by Ubuntu Leadership Safari, OTOA International, and of course, the amazing Distinct Leadership Consults. A little bit about myself, because many people might be wondering who is Tony OTOA and why am I doing this? I'm just your humble guy, your usual hustler. I like to call myself that because it's what I have been, going through most of my life. I am in the oil and gas world where I have spent quite a number of my time. And of course, during this time, a lot of what I did was a lot about public speaking, negotiations, and of course, event management and planning, and things that are very pertinent to me, connecting with people. More about me, I'm an entrepreneur, a farmer. I must call myself a recycled farmer because I have tried and failed, but also tried and made it in so many aspects. So that is a little bit about me. I'm the chief executive as well of the Stanbic Business Incubator. And of course, what we do is work with businesses to help them thrive, to grow businesses. And again, before we end this, I hope this can be a great opportunity for you to see what you can get out of this as a business person. My producers have asked me to ask you to tell us where you are joining us from. So in that box, tell us where you're joining us from. Let us make this engaging. Let us make this interesting. Let us make this very amazing. Very interesting opportunity on a Saturday morning, and I'm doing this for nothing. And the fact that I'm doing this for nothing is because I like to speak, and it's the best way I can serve the world. It's the best way I can serve you. And if I can give it to you free, I am happy to do that no matter what it takes. But also remember that after this session here, we have a detailed catalog of ideas on supporting you with public speaking. We have different products that we can support you, not as a business entity, but also as an individual in becoming a better speaker, able to articulate your ideas, able to speak and be able to convince your next client, your next funder, but also more so, how to speak at your next interview. This is going to be the masterclass for you. So let us begin, and I know it's going to be a very interesting one. Why did we decide to come up with this public speaking masterclass? Many will ask why, and I'll tell you why. You see, the objective of this masterclass, when we were thinking about it with my elder Kabushenga, was to say, let us help people communicate authentically. Communication is very important, and how you communicate authentically is what moves you away from the riffraffs, or the guys who are real, and the guys who people believe in. Now, when you think about authenticity, because a lot of the time we're living in a world where we are struggling with ourselves to, one, be accepted. The more likes you have on social media means you are actually killing it. But what we forget is that authenticity and being the best that you can is what's most real and acceptable for most people, and it's what will take you places and far. Now, first and foremost, I want to say that public speaking is the best way you can articulate your authenticity. How you can express yourself in the realest way. How you can express yourself to the people that have never known about you, but you would like them to know about you, and at the end of the day, it's a synergy. But also, this masterclass is really about connecting with your audience. Now, many of us have been in situations where you go and speak, and by the time you have finished speaking, your audience is still wondering, are we there? Are we not? Your audience is actually wondering, what's this guy talking about? I mean, does he even know what he's talking about? Is he real? Does he know what he's actually trying to put forward? The idea of public speaking is very important, and I'll tell you why. Have you ever been in a room where you get in, you sit, and you hardly noticed until the chairperson or the person who's leading the meeting in the room asks for whatever your title is for you to speak? You see, when you're a great public speaker, your confidence manifests itself even before you speak. You'll enter a meeting room and people will notice. And before they notice or ask you to speak, you've probably already exuded that ability of confidence. Public speaking is very important, but also the other idea that we want to do today is to speak about how to overcome anxiety. Been in a situation where, you're asked to speak and you stand and all you can do is just stand upright with your butterflies in the stomach and all of that, and you cannot articulate yourself. We're going to demystify that today. And we're going to demystify it the best way possible and in simple ways. But I'll also show you that a lot of public speaking is about non-verbal communication. You understand? Your hands, your face, your legs, how you sit, how you stand, how you, everything about public speaking is in there. It's quite interesting to note that 33% of communication at any given moment is about non-verbal communication, your body language. We're going to talk about that today. But also, it's very important for us to understand that it's important to master and empower our non-verbal communications, what I've just talked about today. Body language, very, very key. But most important of all, I want every one of us, each one of us after these 2 hours, to think about the whole interesting journey of being a great communicator. It's very amazing, guys, when you speak to people and you are loud, clear, articulate, and you do not have to go through a lot. Now, I'll just do something that is a bit unconventional here and say, I'm going to share some public speaking hacks. Now, this is going against the norm because if you go to entities like Toastmasters and other entities, they're very organized in how they do things. I am going to show you hacks. And these hacks have worked for me, and this is what has been my show, or has been the way, this has been the way I've been doing things for the last 20 plus years. I remember my time as a DJ on Monitor FM, Black Daddy Sugar Love. That was my studio name. But it was a name that was kind of like getting me to be my authentic self and hack. So today we're going to deal with hacks. And let me tell you something, guys. Let's make this as fun as possible. It is not your very, very serious masterclass in terms of being very, very organized and all of that. Let's make it fun. Let's make it easy. Let's make it very acceptable to each and every one of you. We are going to deal with the guys who have never spoken. We're going to deal with guys who have spoken before, but we're going to make this fun. And if you like it, and you write in our box and say you want this to continue, oh boy, we're going to try and sort it out the best way we can because my producers think this is what we have to do. Why do we have to speak? When I thought about this whole masterclass and I spoke with Kabushenga, I told him, you know, most business people, especially the ones who we consider the richest people in the world, people who we look up to, most of them are actually introverts. Public speaking is something that they fear. And I'm just going to show you one of the most interesting people in the world who feared public speaking. But if you find out who this person is, you're going to be surprised. So you are not alone, and it's not really a situation that you have to worry about. So let's just show you one of these interesting clips before we take the road on the show, or we take the show rather on the road.
Somebody once said that the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. I had been terrified of public speaking. I couldn't do it. I'd throw up. And I knew if I didn't cure it then, I'd never cure it. And so I saw an ad in the paper for the Dale Carnegie course, which worked on developing your ability to speak in public. And I went down there.
Be sincere. A good smile has the same effect as a puppy's tail. When a puppy wags...
They made us do all these crazy things to get out of ourselves, and so we stood on tables and did all kinds of things. If I hadn't have done that, my whole life would have been different. So in my office, you will not see the degree I got from the University of Nebraska. You'll not see the master's degree I got from Columbia University, but you'll see the little award certificate I got from the Dale Carnegie course.
So you've seen that. And you've also noticed that, you know, that's a guy who we all look up to, Warren Buffett. Man feared public speaking. He talked about vomiting when he gets on stage or before he gets on stage, you know. He was a guy who feared public speaking and decided to take it upon himself to do that. And again, a lot of what he articulates as his growth when it comes to business is benchmarked or goes back to his ability to be able to speak in public. So this is for you. This masterclass is for you. Now, why is it important for you to develop your skills? And I'll just begin with this before we get into the craziness of this engagement. The beauty about public speaking and why it's very important, and number one, is it opens up opportunities for career development. A lot of you young people are trying your best to, you know, write the best CVs and push them out and, you know, get them out there. Usually, for most employers today, when they look at a CV, well, it's impressive, they'll call you in for an interview. The interview is actually what carries the day, because unless it's a back room job where you're just going to be punching numbers and hiding in a store, maybe public speaking is not essential. But I'll be honest with you, public speaking is essential in all areas of our lives. At a personal level, we all have ideas, we all have ideals, we all have goals. And when I think about goals, ideals, and all of these things that we are very passionate about or very interested in, the only way we can articulate them is by speaking about them. And that's why public speaking is important. For many of you guys who are trying to get out there to prove your salt, entrepreneurs, my guys who are doing the most interesting innovations and all of that, it's very important for you to understand that it makes you, or public speaking makes you, an authority. If I'm going to listen to you for more than 10 minutes, if I'm going to have you capture my attention for 10 minutes, you have to be able to speak to me. You have to be able to connect with me. You have to be able to hold my attention. That's what public speaking does. And it's a very, very important skill. But also, for any businessman out there, for any person who's trying to compete in a situation, let it be business or whatever, public speaking alone is great enough to convince and set you apart when it comes to competition. When you think about how many times people compete with one another, how many times people want to articulate and say their product is better, you will find that communication is the best avenue for you to articulate that. But also, if you're trying to sell a product as a businessman, as a person who is the visible or the face of the company, it is what actually attracts people to your business. It's what attracts people as well to a lot of the things that you do as a company. Now, for many young people, You go into a situation in your workplace and you're asked to present, or you're asked to articulate a lot of things, or you're asked to, come up with an idea through a presentation. If you start mastering and planning and honing your skills at this very moment, it becomes a very easy avenue for you to become better. But also, it helps you increase on your employees' productivity. And this is to the bosses. You see, if you think that you're in a position of authority and you can negate or put aside public speaking, you're lying to yourself. The greatest leaders I have known, the greatest leaders, both good and bad, have used public speaking as a way of attracting their followers and maintaining their followers, but also getting people to understand their vision and their goals. Without doing this effectively, you're only lying to yourself. So as a leader, this is very important, but it also creates a lot of credibility and helps your clients' loyalty. Clients are loyal to what they believe in. How you speak about it, how you put it out there is what makes them stick to it. Now, I don't know much about where you're coming from. You might be a young guy getting out of university. You might be a guy who's, in your corporate journey. You might be a guy at the helm of a corporate world. But I'll just tell you one thing. Public speaking is one thing that's going to open up doors for you. Personally, I have spoken to hundreds of groups. In the last year or this year alone, I've spoken to over 40 Rotary clubs, and I've spoken to several forums. I've spoken and emceed at a lot of events, international events and local events, and that for me comes seamlessly. But how have I done this, guys? It's not magic. It's easy. You can do it. Let me tell you something more about myself. Growing up as a young guy, I was a very shy guy. My father and my mother at parties would always push the kids in front to dance or to speak to us, or rather to speak to them. My late mother, bless that woman and her soul, man, I was not good at anything. I wasn't good at speaking. I wasn't good at dancing. My brother James was the break dancer. Back in the day, we had guys like Chuck Do and all these guys. And I mean, these guys were good at break dancing. My brother was good at that. I was shy. I was terrified. Guys, to cut this short, I used to run away from the situation as a way of, preserving myself. But when I look at it now, what I decided to do from the time I was in my high school was to hone my skills in public speaking. I tried my best to get into debate societies, learned how to speak, spoke with many young people, got myself onto competitions. Honorable Basa Alirwa is one of the guys I competed with when I was in my senior 3. He beat me and he was the winner and I was the second, but he was in senior 6 and I was in senior 3, so I virtually won. But anyway, that aside, you just need to understand that public speaking will create you as a desirable guest on local, international, regional events and conferences. And by the way, who doesn't like that? It gives you an opportunity to make some extra money, an opportunity to share your idea more, but also an opportunity for you to showcase yourself to the world. I've always said there's no point in you really playing small. We're all born to be great. We're all born to really get out there, share our ideas, and become, great individuals. Public speaking is what gives us that ability. So, what are the personal benefits? Like I mentioned before, increased self-confidence, increased communication skills, or improved, increased organizational skills. Very, very key. But greater possibility as well for meeting people. People always like to connect with people who have something about them. Some vavavoom, some great thing about them that makes them get out there. That's what public speaking does for you. What you also need to understand is that it creates a great persuasion ability. Many times, the reason why we fail to get that girl or get that boy or get that job or get that opportunity or get that funder is just because we do not know how to speak or how to express ourselves. Now, this is where public speaking comes in. And I can guarantee you that by the end of this masterclass, you will actually see the value in taking it upon yourself to come back and hone those skills. And we are here for that. We are here to coach you one-on-ones. We are here to coach you as a group, but we are here to make you confident public speakers, because what good is it if you cannot express yourself and yet you can and you have the ability to? this is your great opportunity. So we're going to talk about public speaking, and I'll just give you a brief background about public speaking. You know, public speaking has been around for years. Thousands of years. You had the Greeks. You know, the Greeks had this very interesting thing. You know, people like Aristotle were the godfathers of public speaking. And when they were dealing with public speaking, they dealt with three main things, you know, ethos, logos, and of course, pathos. Now, when you think about ethos, it talks about the credibility of yourself and your message. Are you credible? As an individual, am I credible to even be speaking to you? Do I have the right to speak to you? When you're going to communicate, do you have the credibility to speak about that thing? So ethos, you know, the idea of the credibility of you as a speaker, very, very key. How do you put logic in whatever you're speaking? How do you organize your story, your speech, your communication? How do you organize it? From start to the middle belly to the finishing. Or do you just go on and just ramble and come back? I was saying, in fact, forgive me, do you just ramble? Or you use pathos to logically plan your public speaking or your speech or your communication? And finally, the final is pathos. And you see, pathos is quite interesting because pathos, in my opinion, takes the hugest chunk of this whole speech idea. You see, with pathos, you're dealing with connecting with the speaker, or rather with the audience. You're dealing with connecting with the individual who's out there trying to listen to you. And in all of this, what you are trying to do is to make sure that your message hits home, your message is always remembered, and your message is very instrumental. So, connecting and the ability to connect with your audience, in my opinion, is very, very important. But let's just go to the other ideas of, you know, interesting people. Because you see, from the Greeks, then you have the Romans who now take it on and then, you know, expand it and really play around with it and make it very, very, you know, crazy. So the Romans have a different way of doing it. And for them, it's really, you know, what we would consider the 5 canons. And these are by a guy called Cicero. Cicero was one of the most amazing orators. And I implore you guys, if you want to really learn how to speak, you're going to have to go out, research, read on these guys, YouTube guys. There's a lot of information out there on how these guys spoke, how to articulate yourselves, how to bring out a point, and so on and so forth. My masterclass today is in fact a combination, a compilation of several different books, ideas, content, both online, in books, without, but also listening to friends and family who are great speakers. And I'll tell you one thing about Cicero. Cicero was a lawyer, he was a philosopher, and this guy mastered the art of oratory. You know, when you come and you speak, and people see that because it is what will drive the whole community to listen to you. Oratory. Oratory. Being able to persuade people. Now, many of us want to get into politics. Our politicians are always saying they're politicians. But sometimes you listen to a politician and you're like, what happened? How did this guy get there? Because you see, in the Roman times, to be a politician, it was first of all an important aspect of your life to understand how to speak. Let me give you a scenario. If I were to speak for 1 minute in Parliament, thank you, Madam Speaker, or Right Honorable Speaker, I would like to raise a point on the issue of the girl child. And the girl child, in my opinion, is an issue that we believe we need to fight for as a country. The girl child has been ignored and abandoned because we have focused so much on things that are irrelevant, and we have failed to put or insist on putting a lot of effort on the girl child. Madam Speaker, how about we focus or put our energy on the girl child, her attributes, her education, so we can actually grow as a nation? How many speakers have you had in Parliament speak like that? So, back to the idea of this Roman guy, man. You know, his idea was, you know, invention. Invention. How do you develop and refine your arguments? Before you get into an argument, how do you refine your arguments? You see, we have social media now with Twitter where we have 280 characters. And when a guy has nothing to say, all he just says is anything. But you see, what Cicero would do in his times was, you know, the idea of organizing or developing your argument. So this involves research. Going out, researching, getting whatever information and data that you believe is important for you. Number two, how do you arrange your information so that it's coherent, it's well organized? Because a lot of the time, what happens is everyone is just throwing in anything the way they like. And the problem about that is that you never get the best out of anything. So arranging and creating a structure for your argument is very important. And then your style. Are you planning to be argumentative? Are you planning to persuade? Are you planning to impact people in a different way? And you see, when you start choosing your style, because I will be honest with you, choosing your style is very important. How you will speak at a funeral is not the same way you will speak at a winning contest. It's not the same way you will speak at a congratulatory session. Your style is very important. Your style will decide on so many things that I'll speak about, including your tone and body language. But most important of all, the ability to create a great speech is based on memory. Being able to articulate your speech without words or peppers and all these things. Our problem as young people is that we have gotten so involved with PowerPoint. So half of the time or 3/4 of the time, you're looking at a PowerPoint slide and you're failing to sell your idea to the public. So the audience is easily focused on your PowerPoint and not focused on you and what you're saying, and boom, their mind starts racing into other ideas. So memory is very important, how you articulate your public speech, how you articulate your communication and your speech, but more so the idea of delivery, the process of making effective voice and body language. You've already seen me use my hands. I haven't been throwing them around so much to distract you, no. I've been using them for emphasis. I've been using them to show you what can be. Because you see, I can speak to you like that. Let me just give you an example. We are going to march on this country. And when we march on this country, I'm going to make sure that all my men are with me. I will go for the weakest man, and by the way, when we are doing this, no one is left behind. Oh, I can do this. We are going to march on this country. All the people we have seen in all of these nations are going to follow us because no one has to be left around. No one has to be left aside. The weak, the young, the small, we're going with everyone. That's body language. Body language. I can choose to be like this. I can choose to use my body language. But the most effective speech, if I'm trying to emphasize anything, body language. So very important. And that's about delivery. You need to remember that your voice is very important. Your voice. You know, I'll tell you something that's very interesting. And this is a little story. Growing up as a young guy, I was asked to speak. It was just an impromptu speech to kind of like, give a vote of thanks to a guy who had come to Busoga. I think it was actually Andrew Mwenda in Busoga College, Mwiri. And I froze. My tongue just got tied. I couldn't. Then I learned a hack. And my producers were laughing at me today before we started. In fact, we started with a prayer as well to kind of boost us. And you'll see a lot of these behind the scenes or behind the scenes moments. But what the hack was, just free up your muscles. The face is full of so many muscles that when you get on stage and you're not prepared or you're not ready, you kind of freeze, man. You kind of freeze. And what I do, I move my tongue or move my jaws, I jump. I hype myself. Drop my chest. You know, I hype myself. But also, most important of all, I create this visualization in my mind that is going to end with applause. People are going to be excited and are going to clap. Psychologically, as a mantra, that just gets me ready and on and going. And that's what I also want to share with you today. So what we do today when we're talking about public speaking is usually very easy and structured. And I'll share with you how we can do this more. The first thing is to understand who. Who is speaking? You are speaking. What are you speaking about? To whom are you speaking to? What medium are you using to communicate? And finally, what effect would you want to achieve out of the way you're communicating, either through the medium or whatever way you're doing it? When you learn how to do that, when you learn those 5 steps, who, what, whom, and of course the medium and the effect, you will understand one thing that is very important in public speaking. Preparation. Preparation, the ability to get yourself ready, the ability to know what to do and how to do and the best way you can, but also the ability to use the right words, the right connections, the right way to connect with the people. Now, we've seen so many speakers. History has shown us many amazing speakers. We have seen guys all the way from Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech. If you listen to Martin Luther King's speeches, you will realize that they were so organized, they were so in line with an idea, they were so structured, and they were also based on an effect. The whole idea of invoking emotions and also asking you to think. I have a dream that one day, I have a dream. Malcolm X. Wow. Listen to any of his speeches. You will realize that this guy was invoking people to rise up. And if you listen to how he starts his speeches from a low level, and again, guys, Google and YouTube is your friend. Do not get lost out of this or left out of this whole public speaking masterclass thinking it's just about turning it. There's a lot of material out there. But Malcolm X was one of the guys who would speak and you would be like, wow. How he started his speeches were always a way of making you calm down and just laugh and listen to him more and get attracted to him. I don't know if many of you have listened to the ballot or the bullet. The ballot or the bullet speech is one very interesting one that my very good friend Angelo Izama managed to share with me some years back. And in that speech, he starts off by greeting the guys in the congregation. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, and I see some enemies. And the crowd would just go like, excited. But you see, that's about breaking the ice. And, for him, the crowd is now happy. He's also happy. And he proceeds into the speech. Barack Obama. Barack Obama's speech about hop, hop, hop. Invoking everything that can ever be known of a person who had never been known. But also, if some of you were old enough to watch Barack Obama's inaugural, his convention speech around 2004, it was a very interesting speech that it actually opened doors for Barack Obama. People in America had never known this senator. And on that day, my God, boy, oh boy. Now, in relation to Barack Obama, some of you remember this young lady who performed the poem at the recent Biden swearing-in ceremony. Her popularity just went up from nowhere. Boom! Winston Churchill, a great guy who named Uganda the Pearl of Africa. Is it? I don't know. But anyway, Winston Churchill, very interesting guy. And when you think about Winston Churchill and how he implored or got his nation to drive or move behind him during a tough time, the time of the war. Speeches, communication. That was what made it happen. So communication is very important. And then, of course, we have our legendary African Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela thrived on public speaking. Nelson Mandela articulated his position, his ideas, his thoughts on public speaking or through public speaking. And again, what types of public speaking ways do we have? Now, I've shown you the different guys, and of course, we're going to talk about the different styles as we delve deeper. But one thing that you need to understand is these are guys who really made public speaking very amazing and attractive. And you can be like them. There's nothing that stops you. So, we're going to talk about public speaking, but let me begin by talking about the three styles of public speaking. Number one, you have the impromptu. You're asked to just stand up and present or speak about something, or give a vote of thanks. I read a book by an interesting lady called Nikitana, and she says in her book, most interesting public speakers, even the good guys, will tell you that they plan months and days ahead of an impromptu speech, so that if or whenever they are called to speak, they're able to articulate themselves and, speak. So again, you as an individual, you can actually try practicing for a possible situation where you're called up to speak in a very, tricky manner. It's possible. Then, of course, the manuscript. Now, the manuscript kind of speeches are the ones that are used a lot of the time by politicians. And you will notice that these are speeches that are written by a certain team or the politician themselves or himself or herself. And in that manuscript kind of situation, what you have is everything is spoken or said by the word. Now, if you have a good politician, they will play around with the intonation. But what happens is you will read off a telegraph or a screen or whatever. But it's quite interesting because that, most of the time, takes away your connection with the public. You're very much focused on this screen that you're looking at, and you end up not giving your best. But of course, the first one being, the extemporaneous. Now, that's what I really, really like to do a lot of the time, and I think it's the best way that you can actually, speak. But this takes a lot of planning, organizing yourself, and being the best that you can be. And I think, in my opinion, it's one that we're going to deal with. So let's now begin this masterclass in a very interesting fashion. I've given you a very interesting background of myself, why it's important to do public speaking. I've shown you or proved to you that public speaking is not a very difficult thing to do. I've also shown you some very interesting speakers in our lifetime. But now let me go to something that is personal for all of us. Very personal. The fear of public speaking. When I saw these statistics saying over 75% of the population fear public speaking, I said it to a friend who said, "Boss, I think it's more than that. I think it's actually over 90% of the people that actually fear public speaking." And then Jerry Seinfeld was very interesting to break it down even further. He says, at a funeral, most people would rather be in the casket than being on the stage speaking. Now, when you think about that, it kind of creates or invokes a lot of, interesting thoughts in your mind. And you're thinking, wait, why do people fear public speaking? Why do people fear getting out there to share their ideas that they believe in or they believe they're worthwhile? Why do people fear to get into, for instance, politics? The biggest fear is rejection. And I'll tell you something interesting. Look, we already hate the fact that we are rejected by one individual. If one individual rejects you, it bothers you. Now you are on a stage and there are 100 individuals and you're going out to sell your idea, your thoughts, yourself. But your mind is telling you you're going to be rejected. So what happens? Boom, fear. Number two, the fear of not being able to relay your message. The fact that if you relayed your message, people might not actually like it or know or understand it, and you will be booed off the stage or whatever it might be. Guys, I have seen people shake. I've been there. There was a time in Tanzania, we had over 500 people or delegates in this room, and I was supposed to be the MC for the 2 days. And guys, new territory, new people, new faces. I mean, for about 10 minutes, I needed to organize myself before the time. I froze. Butterflies in my stomach. How am I going to impress these people? It's not the usual jokes we do in Kampala. This is Tanzania. How are we going to do it differently? How are we going to, or how am I going to try and appease these guys and make them different? And because of that, my voice was starting to fail. You know, my voice was starting to fail, and because my voice was starting to fail, there was also a situation where, you know, your hands get a little, I mean, I'm not a guy who sweats a lot, but boss, I was sweating. Now, if that happens to me, Tony OTOA, a guy who has been speaking for over 20 years plus, then it's possible it can happen to anyone. But I'll just tell you something. When you think about fear, the shaky hands, the sweaty palms, the quivering voice, you know, the stomach cramps, you know, those butterflies, you just feel, oh, la, 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 la. I just can't do it. When you feel that that is starting to happen, there are solutions. There are solutions, guys. What I normally do, and because I love meditating, and I think it's something I would also prescribe to many of you guys watching this, is meditation calms you down. Meditation is very much about your breathing, allowing your body to relax, and calming down. The beauty about that is that your body just goes into a very nice aligned mode, and you then take control. Now, how do you do this? Deep breathing. Hold it. That alone just there, what I've just done, has calmed me down. It has relaxed me. Whenever you're going to speak on a stage with people who probably frighten you, or people who you're trying to pitch to and you're not very confident, take a deep breath. In fact, take 5. But trust me, it will work for you. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out longer than you breathed in. 10 seconds longer. That will help you relax. A lot of the time, that's what helps me calm my nerves. That can help you calm your nerves. That can make you a better speaker as soon as you get onto a stage. Number 2 is shifting your focus outside or outwards. A lot of the time, what happens is you're focused on the butterflies, the shaky, you know, you go on stage and you're like, you know, you're focusing on so much of what's here. Your heart is pumping. You are not focusing really strategically on one very important thing. Outside. The people that are watching you, the people that are actually out there trying to do the best that they can do to listen to you. So what I normally do personally is I will shift my focus on the audience. I like what Kabushenga said the other day, which I also do a lot of the time. Many people in the audience assume I am looking at them. They assume my eyes are focused on them. But what happens is I am actually looking at the tip of their heads. Now what that does for me is it gives me control of the stage. It gives me control of the stage. So shift your focus away from yourself, from your body, from your feelings, and focus very much on the audience and what you're going to give them. Number 3 is the idea of visualizing. And I like this because a lot of athletes use this. You know, athletes are quite interesting people. An athlete, before running, will visualize winning. That allows him or motivates him to go, to run, to do his thing. In public speaking, the same thing can be used. What I normally do is I visualize people clapping and happy and smiling at the end of my talk. But I also visualize people happy during my talk. Mentally, what that does is that it creates this ability for myself to enjoy myself during the whole situation, but also two, not to really focus on myself, but focus on doing a very great job. Now, what I find very important, and again, another reason why people fear and find themselves in a situation where they get stuck or can't move or whatever happens, is focusing on fears instead of facts. You see, if you focus on the fact that you had planned this speech for 2 days or 2 weeks, if you had focused on the fact that you are prepared, if you focus on the fact that you are an authority in that area and these guys have come to listen to you, those are facts, you will calm down. You will realize that now you are in control. You know, in Uganda, we have conmen, and we famously call them Bafere. Bafere are not in any way intelligent people or anything, but they are confident in how they relay their con. And in relaying their con, what you will see is they use facts. The fact that they know it's a con and it has to go through and you are the best possible victim, they will use that to confuse you. And let me tell you something interesting. They will always convince you. So it's very important for us to understand that focusing on facts is very important. Forget about the fears. The facts are really, really important. But also, build your speech on clarity and not complexity. Some of us believe that the best way that people can acknowledge us as authorities means, we have to use big words, big jargons. We have to, go out and try and extrapolate the conundrum of the psychonomic. And guys, the moment you start throwing big words around, unless you are willing to create big words that are entertaining and also making sense, like our former honorable member of parliament, you will understand that you will drive off your audience, and most important of all, your topic or your idea will never hit home ground. So make your speech simple. Clarity. If you have 10 pages of a speech, make it 1 or 2 pages. Make it authentic and make it about you. Don't really go out there to make it so complex in a way that people will never really understand.